Hi, it's Christine Daigle.
I'm Jenna Brown.
It's just Kevin Tumlinson.
Just Kevin Tomlinson. And I'm JD Barker. Welcome to Writers Inc. So I had a news announcement that just broke, this morning. It's something that's been in the works for a long time, but I figured we should probably talk about it. So have you guys seen the movie Flatliners? I know Christine has.
10 million years
Several
ago.
times now.
Yeah, so that's...
Didn't they remake? They remade it, right?
They did, yeah. They made another one in like
They did,
2016 or 2017. It's been a favorite movie of mine forever. And on one of my other projects, a guy named Peter Filardi, he's working with his brother on a reboot of Dracul, or on the streaming series for Dracul. When I got to know him, I realized like he actually wrote the original screenplay for Flatliners, along with The Craft and a few other like really iconic movies from back in the day. But I started bugging him, and again, this dates back years, just basically telling him I've got this idea for a reboot of the whole franchise that I'd love to do. But he wasn't able to do anything because the rights were tied up with the studio, and the rights finally became free earlier this year. So we negotiated a deal, and we basically agreed. I'm working on a prequel novel, or not a prequel, just a reboot novel for the franchise to take it in a completely different direction. And the announcement came across Deadline this morning, and it's making its way through the national press. So very excited about that. And Christine is actually helping me on it, which is another fun fact. Like it's not in the press release yet, which is, something the PR company, they kind of held back. They kind of wanted to just throw like a little thing out there today, just as a teaser. And then we're going to try and feed some more out because we're basically still writing this book. So we got to keep the press machine going for the next 8-9 months as we hash it out. But yeah, so this is a fun project. I have no idea where it's going to go, where it's going to land, but we're getting a ton of interest.
Yeah, it's super exciting. Also, probably will throw up.
Is that terrifying?
Yeah,
I was going to say,
it's fantastic.
Yeah,
it's terrifying, but like it's so much fun to work on this project.
That's amazing.
You're fine.
I'm just excited to be part of it.
That's the kind of thing you want too, because that's a known property. I know it's probably not as well known now by these kids, this generation, but I mean, those of us who want them off our lawns, we remember Flatliners. That was like the hip crew. Did they have a name? Yeah. Like it was a
Brat Pack.
They were Brat Pack?
No,
No,
I thought
they weren't the Brat Pack. That was
No, the Brat Pack was the Breakfast Club kids.
Breakfast Club
like
kids.
Andrew McCarthy, Molly Ringwald, Emilio Estevez. Who else was in the? Who was in the Brat Pack?
Yeah, you're right. There are no Brat Packers in that movie.
I'm not kidding. They were the Frat Pack. That's what they were known as.
The Frat Pack.
I remember now. Yeah. Check me on it.
Yeah, I think you're right, actually. Yeah, because it was a huge ensemble cast, but at the time they were all kind of still unknown. So they had Julia Roberts, Kevin Bacon, Kiefer Sutherland, and what was the other guy's name? Something Platt.
Oliver
Platt.
Oliver Platt.
Yeah, so I mean it's so we'll see where this one's going to go, but we're having a lot of fun writing it. We're taking it in a completely different direction than what most people would expect, which I think honestly was the problem with the remake that they did in 2016. They kind of rehashed the original story, which was okay, but like I really feel like if you're going to do something like this, you can play on those tropes, but it's such a unique idea. There's ways to really take it somewhere new.
I'm a big believer that if you do a remake, you should bring something new.
Yeah.
Like I don't like just remaking something just to be like it's the same movie but now cooler, and it's like I mean that's like, can't you just do something different?
See, that's the problem. I think we had J.J. Abrams redid Star Trek and then the Jedi movies, and he just sort of rehashed the same plots, and I know what the justification was to sort of revitalize those stories and make them fresh for a young audience. But the problem was that there's storytelling has kind of moved on from those moments. Like there's been a spin out from those moments. So you don't want to bring back the same story. You don't want to introduce to something entirely new either. There's a middle ground in there where you can kind of nod to the originals, but don't rehash it, because you're going to lose both the new audience and the established audience that way. The established audience didn't tune in because they wanted to see something fresh and new, not the same story.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, one of the things we did is we pick through the originals and grab like every trope, everything that really jumps out, like the pieces that you really do remember. I mean, because this was a 1990 movie, so this is a long time ago. But there's portions of it that I vividly remember. So we're basically grabbing those and using them against whoever is reading it or watching it. So they expect one thing to happen, and we take it in a different direction, which is
That's fun.
kind of fun.
I need to rewatch that movie.
Yeah, and and honestly, like people have moved on. Like there was a huge religious aspect to the original movie that like from a fundamental level, I don't think quite as many people believe as they did back in the day. So that we got to adjust for that. And technology has advanced. It made huge leaps and strides from that original movie, and that's got to be factored in too. But that's partly what makes this kind of thing fun.
I don't know if you guys did this, and don't take this as backseat driving, but I would have taken at least one character and given them that sort of fundamentalist religious view so that you could nod to it, but then also you could kind of play with disrupting it. Like the expectations were very different than what they were expecting, and then that informs part of the story. But you already wrote the book.
Oh man,
so
yeah, it's definitely back when it came out, it was so many afterlife movies, and Satanic Panic had just ended, and we're in a very different place. And like we said, this is not a remake; it's an original concept in that universe, right? Not the same characters, not the same anything. So
I will just save my ideas for my reboot.
Good, because there's no more room on the cover.
Just have to wait and see.
There's no more room on the cover for more author
fat
names.
liners. Yeah, well,
no,
save space for me next time.
All right, Kevin Tumlinson on the back somewhere.
Awesome. And you have some news too, Kevin? Did you have news?
Well, it's not really news. I had a flub today that is bugging me. So this is cathartic. I want to get it off my chest because I recorded. So I did an interview with JD this week. So for Wordslinger podcast, which you're going to want to tune into, especially if you like money. But I did the rap report this morning, and I went to edit it before the show, and I drop it in, and I was having trouble because I'm like, what's going on? And I kept playing with the audio, and I recorded the entire 30-40 minute rapper with no audio, so I had to record it again.
Oh no!
So hopefully it. I was devastated. So I'm like, and I said, man, I dropped some wisdom in that lost recording too. It was very heartfelt.
Yeah, that's like when you lose pages for something and you have to rewrite it, and it never feels like it comes out as good as whatever you did the first time around.
Yeah,
different, maybe better sometimes. I was having that discussion with Nick Thacker that he lost most of a book, and so he had to start over. I've done that too. My very first book, I did that, and so what you get is very different, but it's also. It could be better because you're refining those same ideas as you go. It might not be a bad exercise to engage in. Frustrating, heartbreaking.
That happens to everybody. I think one time, my very first book that I was working on, I was on a compact HP something or other, desktop computer, and this was back in the day where you turned them off when you were done at the end of the day, and you booted it up in the morning when you started back up. I remember I sat down at it, I turned it on, and the hard drive was just making this weird clicking noise. And it turns out the hard drive had gotten fried, and I had no backup system whatsoever. This was, there was an internet out there, but it wasn't something you could back up to yet. You had to have some type of side backup going on, an external hard drive or whatever. And I had never bothered with it. So I just heard that clicking noise. I knew from past experience what that noise meant. There was no recovering that book. So all I basically had was the stack of pages that I had printed next to me, because I did print as I went to a certain extent, but I was missing maybe 100 pages that I had to recreate. And
you didn't have a zip drive?
No, I mean, I trust me, I got some after. After that happened, I had a zip drive going. I had an external hard drive. I had 4 or 5 different, it was backed up in so many different places. I had one I handed off to a friend, and we would swap the zip drives, just in case there was a fire. It was But the week that I needed to think of all that, I did not, and I lost those 100 pages.
That's why I love Dropbox, and we'll always pay for Dropbox.
Dropbox is
everything
fantastic.
is backed up instantly.
Yeah. New sponsor of the show.
Let's get new sponsor of the show. That would be a good one. But let's get to the news, so we're not wasting any more. I'm not wasting any more of your time with my stories of woe. CCC announces collective solution for internal AI licenses. Copyright Clearance Center aka CCC, has launched its first licensing program for AI reuse rights. This initiative allows participating publishers to include these rights in CCC's annual copyright licenses for businesses. CCC enables users to efficiently gain access to a consistent set of rights across many rights holders and returns royalties to rights holders as compensation for use of their works. The new license provides non-exclusive, annually renewable rights for businesses to use content within AI systems for internal purposes. This program aims to balance AI development with respect for creators and copyright laws. The program has received positive feedback from publishers and organizers, including the Association of American Publishers, AAP. The AAP president stated, "For AI to advance ethically and in a sustainable manner, it is essential to both protect authors and publishers from infringement and incentivize them to participate. Efficient, voluntary licensing solutions are a win-win for everybody in the value chain, including AI developers who want to do the right thing." Do they, though? Do they?
I want to hear author thoughts on this. I'm waiting. What do you think?
I like that they're doing something with, we know that this is inevitable. So someone coming along and saying, here's an established way to handle the rights is a good step forward.
But it's a today forward step, right? It's not going to impact anything that's already been scanned in or used or.
Yeah. Unless something comes along to make this retroactive, which has happened in the past when it comes to IP, it's challenging but not impossible. So it's something to keep an eye on. I do want to see where it goes from here and if it gets widespread adoption with authors and others. But it's something. And if you're complaining that you're worried about rights grabs and things like that, I mean, at least you've got some sort of tool for leverage now. Audible rolls out new royalty plan. Audible has announced a change to its royalty model that will enable creators to monetize more types of content and listeners to, quote, discover more innovative storytelling. Among the changes, more titles, including Audible Plus, will now be able to generate royalty payments with new ways to monetize and promote content. Creators and publishers who sign up for the new royalty model will also receive monthly statements as opposed to quarterly, as well as additional insights and other data points, these things are in quotes, on how their work is performing with consumers. The announcement comes after one of Audible's most vocal critics, Brandon Sanderson, reported in March that Audible officials had approached him to discuss a, quote, new royalty structure, a plan that Sanderson said was, quote, encouraging. There were a lot of quotes in this news item.
Have any of you had a chance to research this at all? I don't know what it actually entails or how it's actually going to change things.
I don't know the specifics. I saw it come through and was kind of glancing through it, and then this story came up. But I'm intrigued and want to know more. Tell me more, please, about these. Not just the new ways to monetize, but they're implying that we'll get those additional insights and other data points quotes. I want to know what those are, because that's the biggest piece missing from every Amazon pie.
I mean, I think they're trying to stay competitive, right? Brandon Sanderson was hypercritical. They responded.
Yeah.
He's happier. I don't really
I guess
know
if Brandon's happy, it's
more
all
than
good,
that.
Right?
So then it's all good. We hope that he's doing the right thing for authors. And, I know they're competing with Spotify and that type of thing, and they're trying to keep bigger authors.
Do you guys have books in that platform or on that platform? Like on your own?
No.
Yeah.
I do not, because I still have not got my beta for Virtual Voice, and I'm too poor to buy my own audio.
I just have my original book, Forsaken. Everything else is through recorded books, so I don't get this kind of visibility. So Kevin, you've got actual books through ACX.
I've got my first 3 novels I paid to have those turned into audiobooks on the platform, and then I've got my deal with what used to be Orange Sky, Findaway's program. I have 3 books from my Kotler series on there, as well as elsewhere. So I don't know how that changes things. And then I've got the whole Virtual Voice deal. So all my books are on there technically.
That's through Audible, right? Is it? Or am I wrong on that?
Yeah.
It's virtual. Yeah. So don't you have one through Virtual Voice too, JD? Like a Dracula one or something?
I do. Yeah. I've got Dracula out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was able to take Dracula, which is in public domain, and but because I wrote an introduction to it, it's basically copyrighted material, and then they let me do an audiobook using that virtual thing. But honestly, since I set it up, I haven't looked at a single statement to see whether or not like it's actually performing on any level. I guess it's time to do that.
Yeah, you have to let us know if the change is.
I feel we should give Kevin homework. He's got the most skin in the game, or the most number
Kevin.
of books. I think you need to check out this new royalty thing
I
and
agree.
see if it's worthwhile or not. Because I've got a feeling once you flip the switch as an author, you might not be able to go back.
That's what I worry about. That's a typical Amazon scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Like, here's a good thing, and then you flip the switch because you like good things, and then 3 months later you find out, well, we were kidding. It's not such a good thing. Now give us your money. Or whatever. It always seems to go that direction. So we'll see how it.
Well, and Audible Plus, isn't that like a Spotify type thing, or like it's free content?
Yeah, that's the all you can listen model. Yeah.
So like you might be giving them the green light to take your, who knows what you're agreeing to. So I guess before we do that, we should.
Are you kidding? Audible has been so good about things in the past. I mean, I am grandfathered in on my first 3 books. I'm grandfathered into the original like 60-40 split, or maybe it was 50-50. But now it's like I only get 40%, and I have to share that with my narrator, because they do all the work. Apparently, I mean, I had nothing to do with this book getting up there with all the writing and paying for people to do stuff and all that.
But isn't that an option? Can't you either pay them flat fee or royalty split, or is that chosen for you?
No, well, back when I did it, there weren't very many options. I think I could have gone one way or the other, and it was sort of I managed to do a kind of split deal where I paid some money, but also did a kind of royalty split with the guy because I wasn't paying him as much as he asked for. I think. I don't know. That was back in the olden times. I have no idea. There's been like plagues and assassination attempts and other things that have happened since then. I got nothing. But speaking of nothing, this is far from nothing. Hachette reorgs Workman, moves Algonquin into Little Brown. Hachette Book Group, HBG, confirmed layoffs at Workman Publishing following the end of a 3-year agreement to retain all employees after acquiring the company for $240 million in August 2021. The exact number of layoffs was not disclosed. Algonquin Books and Algonquin Young Readers are being integrated into Little Brown. The Hachette Books and Hachette Go imprints have been dissolved, leading to layoffs of around 11 employees, including publisher Mary Ann Naples. Titles under these imprints will be reassigned within Grand Central Publishing, or GCP. Oh, Hachette.
More publishing reorg.
You need to find some good publishing reorg news. Like there doesn't seem, I mean, I think everybody there probably saw this coming because Hachette buys this company. They basically tell everybody we're not laying anybody off. Because it's in the contract, they have to wait 3 years in order to do it. But 3 years and a day, and here come the layoffs. So yeah,
that really should have been 3 years of job hunting. Frankly, I think a lot. Well, those people worked out okay. Like they all got reassigned. It was the Hachette people themselves that ended up being let go. Like those 11 people may not have seen that coming, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, layoffs are always unfortunate. So.
Don't I know it, sister? And my wife got laid off from, so she was working with Office Depot, in their corporate furniture division. She got laid off back in March. And so it's not just publishing, but like that company, I think, is rotten from the inside. Like they lost out on this whole deal where Staples, the SEC blocked an acquisition by Staples. And I predicted at that point, and that was well before she got laid off. And I predicted at that point, like, they are in trouble. There's no way that they even go through the motions of that sort of thing without there being some sort of problem internally. So
a lot of corporations do layoffs consistently as part of tax restructuring too. Yeah. They don't like to talk about that, but that happens at a lot of large corporations around this beautiful United States of America.
This feeds right into this week's episode of Word Slingers.
This week's work,
Do not work for the man. Work for yourself.
That's exactly right, too. And sometimes you got to do those episodes twice just to get the message across.
Whatever it takes to get it right.
That's what it is. All right, that's it for the news. All the news that's important anyway.
All right. Perfect.
When you're writing a book, the first draft is the easy part. It's what comes after that hurts. The confusion, the self-doubt, questioning this, questioning that, trying to get feedback so you can feel confident making changes. It's a lot to handle. And that's why I'm delighted to say that this episode of the Writers Inc. podcast is sponsored by AutoCrit. One of the most value-packed memberships for any author, AutoCrit brings you an amazing suite of tools that can make it a breeze to plan, write, and edit your books all in one place. From start to finish, everything you need to produce a strong, confident story is at your fingertips. Get instant developmental feedback on plot, conflict, characters, themes, and more through the Story Analyzer. And edit each sentence to perfection with a complete interactive editing suite packed with reports and insights. And that's not to mention additional benefits like private community forums and live members-only support and writing sessions every single week. It's an incredible place to be for any writer. And listeners of the Writers Inc. podcast can take advantage of lifetime AutoCrit Pro membership for one single payment. That's right, no renewal fees. Head to autocrit.com/JD to get yourself a lifetime membership now. Big thanks to AutoCrit for sponsoring the show.
JD, who's up this week?
This week, we've got Katherine Wood. She's a graduate of the University of Southern California, and she's here to tell us about her recently I had it down as her debut novel, Lady Killer, but we've since learned that she is basically publishing her fourth novel under her real name, where she had used a pen name in the past, which is very interesting. But here she is, Katherine Wood.
So you are releasing your novel, Lady Killer, and is this your debut? Is that right?
No, actually, Lady Killer is my fourth book, but I published my first three books under a pen name, Kaplan.
Okay.
And I am dropping the pen name and using my real name, which is Katherine Wood, for Lady Killer.
Oh, fun. I was wondering about that when you came out and was like, different name. Which one is the pen name? That's why you were hard to stalk. So
I'm just trying to bamboozle everyone, just confuse people completely.
I love it. So we can talk about that a little bit, about that name change, but I want to start at the beginning. How did you get started writing?
Well, I mean, depends on how far back you want to go. I've always written. My mom was an English teacher. My dad was an attorney and aspiring playwright. So writing and literature and drama were always like very big in our house. We were also always very big readers. I went to school for acting, actually. So I've always been a storyteller, though when I was younger, it was storytelling with my body through acting, and now it's storytelling through words with writing. But I worked as an actress in Los Angeles for about 10 years, and I started getting interested in the other side of the camera. And I started a production company with my now husband, and we started making small films and commercials and shorts and all that kind of stuff, web series. And we had a lot of fun doing it, but I ended up having two little girls back to back. And there came a time when it was just too much to handle, flying around, like shooting commercials and that kind of thing. And I'd always wanted to write a book. So I thought, this is a good time while I've got these two little girls at home. I can stay home and I can finally attack that book that I've always been wanting to write. So I jokingly call my first book, The Lion's Den, the nap time novel, because I wrote it while my daughters were napping. And also before they woke up and after they went to bed. And I basically did nothing other than write and parent little bitty children for about a year. And that's how I got started.
I love that. That's actually how I started writing too. When my son was born, I was just bored and he didn't do anything. So I started writing. So I wonder how many people have that origin story that are like, I was a mom and so I wrote a book.
It's true, because you babies don't talk yet.
They don't.
And they sleep a lot. And yeah, it's true, you're not getting a whole lot of sleep at night, but during the day, they do continue to nap. And, if you're a person like me who has a hard time sitting still, and especially a hard time not using my brain, you can get a little bored. I hate to say it. So
Yeah.
I think that it's a matter of reading, writing, doing the things that you can do while also parenting.
Yeah, and they nap during the day, and I can't daytime nap for whatever reason, so it's like, might as well do something.
Neither can I. I wish I could. I
I
really
know.
wish I could, but I can't.
Yeah. No matter how sleep deprived I am, I can't do the daytime naps. Okay, so you started in acting, and then you were doing commercials, and then you wrote your book. Did you do any kind of like formal studying of writing, or did you do your own kind of study, like just taking books apart that you were reading, or how did you go about that?
I studied screenplay writing. So I
Okay.
studied writing for television and film. I was a theater major. I went to the University of Southern California, where I was a theater major, and we did a lot of classes in conjunction with the film department, which was great. And so I did study screenwriting in school. And it's funny because I've been told that my books have beats like a screenplay would, and that's because that's where my training comes from.
Yeah.
I really, with my first book, was just flying by the seat of my pants. I had a story that I wanted to tell, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I really was having fun writing. And so that was, I think the most editing that I've ever done on a book was with that book, because I wrote it with no outline. I wrote it, just to get the story out. Now I am better about outlining, though not always great, and not always great at sticking to an outline. But yeah, I definitely, like, as I have written more books, I have learned what works for me and what doesn't, of course, in the writing process.
Yeah, so you developed your process. And I think that's interesting because I think there's like probably more in common with screenwriting and novel writing than not. I think one of the first books I read was actually a screenplay or geared towards screenwriters was Robert McKee. Um,
Yes,
yeah,
of course, I have
story,
that
right?
one.
And it's like, well, we got the 3-act structure and I mean, so many of the principles are the same. I mean, there are things that are different, obviously, right? You have to think about cameras, whereas, a lot of book writing is inside your head. I find it really interesting that you didn't outline after being a screenwriter. You just kind of pantsed that first book.
Well, I think that it was a matter of wanting to do something completely different.
Oh,
And
okay.
so all of my screenwriting, it's so ingrained in me that
Yeah.
it kind of comes second nature.
Yeah.
So I could feel when I'm hitting the points that I need to be hitting, but with writing a thriller, I don't know, there's two different ways that I think about it, and I kind of marry the two of them together. There's a part of me that says, yes, you absolutely have to be plotted out because you're dropping clues along the way. Your threads have to all connect to something later on. So in that way, yes, it is important to plot. However, what I often do is once I have written my first draft and I have followed my plotting, I feel it doesn't sing, and it doesn't. It doesn't jump off the page. I'm not too surprised by any of the twists. And that is when I go back and I find my big twist, and I use the things that I've already set up in that first draft, and I mine those characters. And I already set this up. And what if we delved a little bit more deeply into this quality? Or what about this incident that we mentioned back here? Could there be more to that? And then I start mining those things to find my twists. And I think because of that, because I don't come up with them until I've written like the base story, I think that way they stay surprising. That way
Yeah.
a twist isn't, and then I go back and I make sure that, of course, all of the threads link and it all works together. But I feel like by virtue of not just sticking to a plot, I'm able to keep it surprising.
Yeah. And I think that's interesting. And I know there are a lot of people who say, know your ending before you sit down and write. And I always do, but then my ending is never the same because I usually throw
That's
it
so
out.
true. Yes. I always I know where I'm going and I go somewhere near there. But it's like, when you're going on a trip and you've rented an Airbnb that's supposed to be gorgeous and you get there and then you're like, oh, it's not really about the Airbnb. It's about this beautiful vista that's down the street from the Airbnb. So it's kind of like, you went there, you got on the plane and you made it to the city and you got there, but once you got there, it's like, let's go a little bit further.
Yeah, exactly. Don't be afraid to throw that outline out when it's not working for you.
So true. I've learned that the hard way.
Yeah. So are you a detailed outliner or are you kind of a sparse outliner? You kind of hybrid like discovery and
if there are details that are important to character development or important to the plot, I will mind those details. But I am more of a broad strokes outliner. And I do a lot of outlining in my phone right before bed because that is when ideas when it come to me. And so I have all these different like notes apps going in my phone. That are all terribly unorganized, but it's the kind of thing like, what they tell you when you have a dream and you want to remember it to just write down like one little phrase and you'll remember the whole dream. Well, it's like that for me with ideas that I have, because clearly that idea has come from somewhere inside of me. It's not like I just like randomly came up with it. These are characters that I'm thinking about for months on end. This is a plot that I've been trying to figure out the twist in, And so when I have things come to me, I often will write just those phrases. And then I go back to that and I put them into my outline. My outlines also tend to become like a really long stream of consciousness document that like has, initially it has like a beginning, middle, and an end. And then I start changing things and then I copy and paste because I don't want to lose my initial idea. And then I add on to that, and then I'll take like the middle of it and copy and paste that because I want a different beginning, So there's a lot of like, if anyone else looked at my notes, they would be completely befuddled. But to me, they make sense.
They make sense and they keep you on track. And I love that you do that kind of at night, just as you're falling asleep. I think there's something about that space where you're kind of really sleepy and not quite awake and you're almost heading off to dreams where you get really creative ideas. So I think a notes app or pad of paper.
And the brain finally lets go. Like sometimes I think that like, the hardest days as a writer are the days you don't write, the days that you're staring at the wall because you're at a point in the book where you don't know what needs to happen next. It may not be a plot problem. It may not be that you're at a place where you have written yourself into a corner. It may just be that you don't know the right way to get into the scene that you want to write. You may be thinking of the most interesting way that I can get this information that needs to be gotten across. And or it may be a twist that needs to happen in order to bridge two different scenes or parts of the book, and you just are you can't quite get there. And what often helps me in those situations is to go for a walk, to put it down, get my dog, and go outside. And that way, and I listen to music and I allow myself music without words, preferably. And I allow my mind to wander. And then at some point during the walk, I'm like, okay, now let's think. I tell my brain, let's think about this, whatever the problem is. And I just allow my brain to kind of work it out while I'm walking. And it works a lot better for some reason while I'm walking than it does when I'm sitting on my couch staring at the wall.
Yeah, I find that too. I find that sometimes when I'm really trying to solve that problem, I almost get too serious and involved and too complex. And I'm like, I need to do all these things. And then I walk away and I'm like, oh, wait, if I just did this one simple thing, it would fix everything.
So true. So true. I'm very fortunate as well that my agent is an editorial agent and
oh, nice.
I trust her completely and I allow her inside my head, even in the early stages of things. And I'll, send her a text message with like some crazy idea that I've had. And she'll either say, awesome, love it. And what about this? Or she'll be like, I think you need to go to bed,
Yeah. So, okay, let's talk about that. So your agent, so this Lion's Den nap time book, did that book go on submission for you? Was that a book that ended up getting published or did that one stay in the drawer?
No, that was my breakout book, my debut book. Um, and I'll tell you, I spoke to a friend of a friend today on the phone, and who had just written her first book, and she was asking me, what did you do? Like, how did you go about getting an agent and
Yeah.
everything? And I knew nothing about publishing because I was coming from film, and they're totally different.
Yep.
So I got the Guide to Literary Agents, and I went through it, and with many colored highlighters. And I highlighted the people that I thought would be right for me. I kind of had like my A list, B list, C list. And then I went online and went to their websites and looked at the different agents and what they were accepting and tried to feel out whether I thought a place would be a match for me, and made a spreadsheet. And then I started submitting. And, as you know, when you submit, everybody wants something different.
Yep.
So you really have to, be specific about who you're submitting to, which I think is great because it makes you like, you can't do just a blanket submission. You really have to be like, okay, you have to think about it.
Yeah.
And that was how I found Sarah, my agent. And she was very patient with me because I knew nothing about the publishing industry. And we worked together on my first book. I had already written a draft of it, but she helped me revise it until we felt like it was in a place that we could submit it.
Very nice. So you just cold queried, and you've had the same agent for all 4 books.
I have. I'm very fortunate. She's now one of my best friends as well. I just absolutely adore her. And it's a literary agency. And then I have a separate film agent who I also love.
Mhm.
So I'm very, very fortunate to have great people supporting me. I think it is like, as a writer, you're so solitary when you're doing the actual writing. So it feels so good to have a team doing all the things you're not good at.
Yeah.
Like I can sit in front of a computer and write, and I can talk about ideas all day long. But when it comes to the business side of things, understanding publishing, understanding what's working, you need like a good publisher for that. You need a good editor to tell you your book is too long.
Yeah.
And like when you have these people that have your back, it allows you to be the artist that you want to be.
Right. And they do all that stuff. So you go out on submission with your very first book. How was that for you? How did you find that? Was it nerve-wracking? Was it
It was
quick? Was
definitely
it
nerve-wracking, and it went so much faster than film. I'm used to the film world where things move at a snail's pace. I mean, extremely slowly. And so it was shocking to me that the manuscript went out on, I think it was a Wednesday, and by Monday, I was setting phone calls.
Wow.
So it all went really, really quickly.
Yeah.
And it was a lot simpler than the film industry as well, because it's just you. There's not, you're not putting together a package. There's not all these different people to hire. It's just you and finding a match with an editor and publishing house.
Yeah, that is very fast for publishing, by the way. I know people who've been on for like 8 months and things like that. So that is a
Well, I
very
know
fast
that there's
turnaround.
no norm.
There's no normal. That's right.
I
That's
also
right.
only have my experience
That's it.
because I went into it knowing nothing. So that was my experience.
Yeah. So you did 3 books, and now the 4th book, you're going to your real name versus your pen name. What was the decision behind that? Was it a genre switch? Was it something else?
It's not really a genre switch. I think it's more of just as I get older, I have more and more of a need for authenticity in my life. And as an actress, I had a stage name, and I was using basically a stage name, a pen name for books, and I just wanted to use my real name. It's not a great story. I feel like I
Yeah.
should make up something salacious, like, oh, well, Catherine St. John actually was arrested for impersonating the Queen, but that didn't happen. So
That's nice. That's lovely. And your agent was just like, "That's fine. You can change your name after 3 books if you'd like to do that."
they've been my agent and my publisher have been very supportive, and we'll see whether I've made a giant mistake when the book comes out.
Okay, so let's talk about the new book, Lady Killer. So in this one, a young woman vanishes from her home in Greece, and her best friend has to find her, and she's using these clues from this manuscript that her friend left behind. So I'm curious about it. one of the taglines for it is everyone has a story, but not everyone's story is true. How did this idea come about? Like, what made you want to tell this story?
Well, my books are escapist thrillers, and the escapist part of that is going to be a great location. And it's also, there's usually an element of wealth involved. So I had visited Greece and I love Greece and thought I would love to set a book here. When I'm writing a book, I'm going to that location every single day. So I wanted to go to Greece for a year in my brain. So I chose Greece. And then the idea of someone going missing, that was the kernel of the idea was that friend going missing and her friend going in search of her. And I was like, okay, like that I started with that, you know. And then you start playing it out in your mind, like, so what is it? Why does she go missing? Who are the other people that are involved? How do we learn her side of the story if she's missing without, because you have to learn her side of the story without knowing what happened to her. So if she's telling the story, then you know that she made it. It makes it kind of, you want to, it was a matter of trying to figure out what is the best way to tell this story. So I had to come up with a device that allowed for Gia, she's the one who goes missing. She's a rebel heiress who has just inherited a Greek islands estate from her father, who died and left most of his fortune to charity, but left her this Greek islands home, which she's going to have to sell because at the age of 30, she really hasn't done much with her life other than start some businesses that didn't go anywhere and flounder around and fall in love. She's there getting the property ready to sell with her brand new husband, Garrett, who she met and married in short order right after her father's death. Yeah. She had a falling out with her best friend, Abby, who is kind of the polar opposite of Gia. Abby is bookish. She's an attorney. She's hardworking. And she was the daughter of Gia's family's former chef. So that's how they became really good friends. And Abby warned her against marrying this guy that she just met, and they had a falling out over it. So even though they're best friends and have, like, you know, traded text messages, they haven't talked as much for the past 3 months ever since they had this falling out.
Yeah.
So when Gia invites Abby to go to Sweden to celebrate her 30th birthday under the Northern Lights, which they'd always talked about going to the Northern Lights, Abby agrees to go. And as a bonus, Gia's hot brother, Benny, is coming along, who was kind of Abby's one that got away. So when Abby gets there, she and Benny arrive to find that, and Gia doesn't show up. So that's the end. Then they get these weird text messages from her, and that's the impetus for them to go to Greece to try and find her. Now, once they get to Greece to try and find her, and this is all told intercut with Gia's story.
Yeah.
So I needed to find a way that Gia could have believably written a manuscript that they would find when they get there that would give them the clues that they need in order to find her, right? And the way that I set that up, I was like, is Gia a writer? Is she a journalist? Is it, you can think about these different things as a writer. You think, oh, is it journal entries? Is it letters? Is it emails? But you don't want it to feel too gimmicky, you know, and you don't want to read a whole book of emails. Like, that would just kind of be annoying, I think. And forgive me if there's a book you love that's all emails, but like, that sounds kind of annoying to me.
Yeah, not one I can think of. I love epistolary stuff, but I can't think of one that's all emails.
I'm sure that someone maybe could do it beautifully, but I don't know if I'm that person. So yeah, so what I ended up coming up with, and which ended up being like one of those things that gives the story a lot of depth, and was one of the things that I mined in order to give their backstory a lot of meaning. When Gia and Abby were 18, they were spending the summer in this Greek estate, and Gia had a relationship with a local that turned sour. Right. Turned into a stalking situation that culminated in him assaulting Abby. Gia came to Abby's defense and killed him with a lamp, knocked him out. And they were cleared of any wrongdoing, but it was one of those situations where the foreign press was all over them, oh, was it a sex ritual gone wrong? Oh, did they mean to kill him? Kind of, did all this kind of stuff. And so Gia, never wanted to shy away from press, wrote a memoir about it afterwards. And it was actually pretty well received. And she probably could have had a career as a writer had she wanted to, had she thought that she could write about anything else, had she not been too busy, being a jet setter in her 20s.
Socialite, yeah.
So no, but on her father's deathbed, she promised him she would start writing again. So now that she's in Greece, kind of waiting for for the repairs to be completed on the property so that she can sell it and get the money she needs to live on, she has the time to write. And so she's started writing, not knowing what's going to happen, because memoir is her, that's her genre, that's where she writes. And so she's writing about the things that are happening as they're happening.
Yeah.
So that is the manuscript that Abby finds. Now, whether or not everything in this manuscript can be believed is a different story, because even the memoir that Gia wrote about what happened when they were 18, it's pushing the limits of the definition of memoir. Not everyone knows that, but Abby does. Yeah. Now, Abby's not going to come out and call her best friend a liar, and she really believes that Gia believes everything that she wrote is true, but Gia's point of view can be a little bit warped.
Yeah.
So Abby knows that. So reading this manuscript that Gia's written about everything that has transpired leading up to her disappearance, she has to wonder, is it all true? Did all of these things really happen? So I have to stop there.
Yeah, we don't want to spoil it.
Without giving anything away.
Yeah, it was a very fun way to do an unreliable narrator, and I don't want to spoil anything, but I got to the end of it and I'm still not sure about what's true in some parts of it, which was good because it left me thinking about it. I was like, wow, I don't know if I believe anybody, but that's a great novel.
I give everyone the tools, the facts, the things that you would need to figure it out. Yeah. But this is not a book that's tied up with a bow. And that's some people are gonna love it and some people are gonna hate it. I mean, there's definitely people who are gonna be like, whoa, wait a minute. But then there's readers, like I am a reader who loves it when it's left up to me to figure out exactly what happened. And it's not one of those books, for those of you who are listening and thinking like, oh, is it a cop-out where you just end the book without an ending? No, there's definitely an ending. It's not a cop-out. It's completely on purpose. But it's definitely an ending that you will argue about with your friends.
Yes.
I've had friends that have read early copies of it come up to me and been like, we need to talk.
Yeah, maybe I'll tell you what I think after and you can tell me why I'm wrong.
Exactly.
So you lived in Greece for a year while you did this novel?
In my head. Unfortunately, I didn't actually live in Greece for a year.
How long did you visit Greece? Was it a shorter vacation?
I was only in Greece for probably about 10 days.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you lived there.
I was not there for a year.
So you did some on the ground research. Okay, these Disney castles were so creepy. I don't want to blow
those really exist.
I know. I looked them up. Are they in Turkey? Is that where they are?
They're in Turkey. Yeah, they're in Turkey. Mm-hmm. I saw, my agent actually, I think I sent her an article about them, and then she said, I don't remember exactly how, but she and I were she was like, we have to do, you got to put these castles in there. You got to do something with these castles. I don't know what it's going to be, but you got to put them in this book. And I was like, okay, I will. And I did.
I love that how you took from another country and kind of dropped it into Greece. Because I was looking in Greece, I couldn't find it. And then I found I wonder if it sees ones in Turkey. And I just that's great. I just love kind of smushing different countries and cool things into one and taking that creative license. It was so fun.
It's a development. I mean, these things happen, these big developments get made and then the funding falls apart and it leaves these shells of homes. And I think it's that much eerier that they're really opulent. But that could happen anywhere.
Yeah, they're very eerie. I watched the YouTube video of some guy exploring them and that is creepy and expensive, an expensive, creepy venture. So
yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's awesome. Oh my goodness. And we are almost out of time. So just as we're wrapping up, I just have one final question. If you could offer one piece of advice to new and aspiring authors, what would you want to say to them?
Gosh, to quote Nike,
just
do it. I think that we all make a lot of excuses. about why we can't write. We don't have time, or we don't have training, or our idea isn't good enough. But if you want to write, just do it. Just write. Just sit at the computer, let the laundry go, and write.
Okay, so I want to know, have you ever done any acting? And if not, do you think you'd like to?
I have.
Not.
I have too.
Yeah.
I know JD has, but I don't think he can talk about it.
Yeah, there's some I can, some I can't. I had
What?
when I was at the Art Institute in Fort Lauderdale. My girlfriend, we started off in the music business, but she quickly decided she wanted to be on the film side, and she had started working for, I think her first real gig was Real World Miami. And she did some soap opera stuff, but she ended up getting into production for film. And at the time, South Florida was like being seen as the new Hollywood. It had some huge tax benefits, so they were trying to drive a lot of feature films down there. So they filmed like Cape Fear down there with Robert De Niro, True Lies with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Tom Arnold, Fair Game with Cindy Crawford, all these different movies. And anytime they came to town, if she was working on them, she'd get me in there as an extra or a little, speaking part here or there. So I'm in a ton of movies from that era, that time frame, but like for quick, like 2 seconds. In Cape Fear, there's a parade scene that they filmed in Young Circle down in Hollywood, and I'm standing behind Nick Nolte while he's talking to somebody. And if you watch really close, every time they flash back and forth in the conversation, one time I'm on his left side, the next time I'm on his right side, and I'm wearing different clothes, and then I'm back again because it took like 3 days to film the same scene, and like I didn't bother to wear the same clothes like we were supposed to. But yeah, that's kind of the extent of it. I was on a ton of things that they filmed in that area. I was on Cops for a bunch of episodes too, just doing ride-alongs.
Me too.
Yeah, Fort Lauderdale was like Cops Haven when they first started that show. They used to come down there all the time because they never had trouble getting material.
That's great.
I was in a movie called Full Metal Alchemist. I played a character called Gluttony, for which I had to shave my head. I have photos.
What?
Oh yeah. I was a supernatural being.
I expect an email at the end of this episode.
Yes, Google that. I have an IMDb credit.
So yeah, we need to do a social media montage of your film appearances.
Oh, there's a lot of that kind of stuff. Now, I'm most famous for my role in the movie Tin Cup, where my elbow featured prominently in a scene where he was hitting a ball over the water. That was my finest role, I think. But
your elbow.
Yeah, I've been in a few. Yeah. I've kind of shown up in a couple other things because I worked in film and TV for a while. So I would occasionally we needed an extra. Like I might have been a grip or something, and we needed an extra, so I'm in like a slice of a scene here or there. And I was in RoboCop briefly, like in a flash. I can't even find myself. Others have said that they have found me, but I don't believe them because the stuff they send me, it's very pixelated and blurry, and like it could just as easily be in a dog or something.
Did you actually enjoy it, like doing that sort? Because I hated it. It was like so much hurry up and wait.
There's a lot of that, but I was already used to that because I was behind the camera a lot anyway. So there was hurry up and wait was usually my fault. So I tried out for the role of Robin in the Batman and Robin movie because they had auditions in Houston. And
did you really?
I really did. That's not as cool as it sounds because there was several, there was like 1 million people that showed up at those auditions. It was like an open audition thing. And it was more about promotion than anything, but somewhere I have my screen test somewhere.
I also expect that in an email.
Which Robin with Michael Keaton? That Robin?
With Clooney.
Oh, with Clooney.
I think so.
Oh yeah. I think he's the only one that did a Robin.
Yeah.
Might be. I don't remember.
Yeah. I would never actually. I don't think I would volunteer. I don't even think I'd want to be one of those authors that does a cameo. I don't know. Acting to me is one of those things where actors feel like wizards to me because they turn into completely different people. And I know kind of how there's no music and there's all these people on this set and there's, it's, and yet they're so convincing to me. It's magic. So I don't know. It's very intimidating. I don't know that I would ever be able to like get out of my head enough to be like, this isn't real. Like this isn't what. So I've never been on the stage.
No, me neither. I would like to act, but I am so painfully shy and self-conscious. I don't know that it would ever be awesome. My parents tortured me with classical piano from the time I was 5 to 13. I never played in front of anybody except for my exams because I would throw up. There was no way that was happening.
Well, I guess that's not true. I was on stage. I did competitive dance for quite a long time ago I think I stopped when I was like 12 because it was my mother's dream and not mine. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. But
I have that exact same story. That is so weird.
Yeah. So I did do that. A bunch of tap, jazz, and ballet solos and ensemble dances. But
oh, that's fun.
That's different than acting to me because all you have to do is like just dance and smile without looking like you're dying, and that seems pretty easy. You don't have to believe that you're a character.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to do competitive skating, but on a team, synchro. So that wasn't bad because they weren't just looking at me. So I couldn't manage that. And anyway, I like that, she started as a screenplay, a film writer. Do you study screenplay craft for your writing? Because that's honestly where I started, and I find it very helpful. So
I don't do the screenplays, but one of my friends who is an actor told me to read Ivana Chubbuck's The Power of the Actor for character development. And that was a brilliant piece of advice that I am grateful. Just because it's, talking about how to really get inside a character's head and like, win the scene and the small things that you can think about. That when I started thinking about, even if it didn't make it on the page, it got me into the character more than I expected. So I have done that.
I've read tons of screenplays, and a lot of times I'll do it like side by side with the book just to figure out what the differences are. But what I like about them is they cut away absolutely everything that's unnecessary. And it's just a complete skeleton or framework of a book. I've got friends that have made a very good living going the other route too, where a screenplay is handed to them and they're work for hire to write the novelization based on that screenplay, which is another whole side hustle you can do as a writer. It's real easy to crank those out because you're basically just, the whole framework is there. You're not making anything up. You're just churning out words. But I think any author, that should review some screenplays, just take a look at them, figure out, why certain dialogue was left in, why something was changed, and try to keep that in mind as you're writing the book.
That sounds challenging to do that. I've always kind of wondered about the adaptation stuff. I guess, is that adaptation still considered adaptation when you're going from script to book? Or novelization.
Novelization.
That's the right word. Yeah. I've always kind of wanted to do that. And because I've read a lot of screenplays in my life, and I have some favorites. Like I studied like the Memento screenplay, Pulp Fiction. For some reason, these nonlinear screenplays were always the ones that I gravitated towards. And then I also studied all the Star Trek and Star Wars screenplays because.
Nice. Yeah, I think everyone should study screenplay craft because it's so much the same as story craft, and I mean they cross over and you can learn so much. But the other thing that I thought was interesting is that she said she has an editorial agent, which got me thinking about it. For those of you who have agents, how editorial is your agent? Or if you had an agent, would you like them to be editorial or not?
My answer is no and no. So with my first agent, she was very editorial. She would come back with, pages of notes and things that had to be changed and this and that. In the first couple of books, I did absolutely everything that she said. But then I realized that a lot of times, it was really, it came down to opinion. It wasn't necessarily, something that had to be changed, but I was spending an extra 3 or 4 months on each book incorporating those changes. So I kind of nixed that. I basically, just treated my agent as, another beta reader. If she flagged something that, beta readers were flagging as a problem, 2 or 3 people saw it as an issue, then I dealt with it. But otherwise I let it go. My current agent, she reads them. She will happily read everything I send her way, but she doesn't provide that kind of info because she knows I just don't want it. There's a reason for it too. Like if I get feedback from somebody, I really want feedback from readers, not from somebody in the industry, because industry people are, to a certain extent, they're jaded. They read so many of the same types of books. They read so many books. They tend to dig in on a much deeper level than a reader might. So they pick at things that, a reader may not care about, and like ultimately I'm selling my books to readers and not a bunch of agents. So I go towards that.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I'm so egotistical because I don't want anyone to give me any suggestions about my writing, but I'm trying to be humble and take those as I get them. But I only want them from people.
I think I would like an editorial agent.
You'd like an editorial agent?
I mean, yeah, but I like feedback. I really do. Like I function really well on a team. I like I like it even if I don't agree with it, because it makes me think about things differently, and I think that makes me better even if I don't use that advice. I do think it forces me to consider an alternative that I wouldn't have, and I actually really, really thrive on that. So I think I would like it.
I should make it clear that those things are good. I just don't want them.
Well, some people don't need them. I do. Like I said, like I've learned that about myself. Like I do really well with structure. And I thrive when I have like any type of collaborative work. I do really well with that, and I can function on my own. I mean, I've been freelancing for years and writing on my own for years, but I really crave, like I love brainstorming. I love talking through things, and I love seeing things from a different perspective, even if I don't agree with that perspective. So I think it would work really well for my personality.
Yeah, I think that's the important part, right? Is that, I also like feedback, but also you have to trust yourself, right? So when you get the feedback, make sure you're trusting yourself.
Well, let's not go too far. I don't want to trust myself either.
Fine, Kevin.
I'm an unreliable narrator.
Unreliable editor.
That's the title of my autobiography, Unreliable Narrator.
Yeah, a memoir.
A memoir.
Awesome. I pre-ordered it.
Perfect. All right, JD, who is up next week?
Next week, we've got Daniel Silva coming on. He's the award-winning author of many #1 New York Times bestsellers, including The Unlikely Spy and The Heist. His latest novel is book 24 in his Gabrielle Allen series. It's titled A Death in Cornwall. He's going to be here to tell us all about the book and dig into his writing process. Daniel Silva.
Sounds great. If you'd like to be notified as soon as new episodes publish, make sure you go to writersincpodcast.com and sign up now. We'll see you next episode and have a great week of writing.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Writers Inc. Access the show notes and leave a comment at writersincpodcast.com.